Hey, folks, it's time for the quote of the day. And I want to remind everybody before I get going that just because I quote somebody doesn't mean I agree with them. Just because I quote somebody doesn't mean that I'm necessarily lifting up their voice because I think they're a good person. Sometimes I quote people specifically because I don't like them and I want to talk about them. Today is a good example of that. Now, before I tell you who this is, I want to also say that this is somebody who, when they sell you the idea of the American dream, this is oftentimes who people think of. When they sell you the idea of rags to riches, and if you just pick yourselves up by your bootstraps and blah, 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 and that bullshit, this is what they are thinking of a lot of times. A literal once in a lifetime situation, but somebody who absolutely represents America in all facets, in all ways, he represents America. I mean that quite literally, and it's it's not a good thing. It is a good thing, but it's not a good thing. Today is the birthday of the one and the only, thank God, Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motors Company, the person whose cars a lot of people drive around still today. Absolutely changed the country. It changed the world with his assembly line. Now, for those of you that maybe need a refresher, I'm just going to give you a few tidbits about him before we get into the real juicy stuff. Before he was born on a farm. Okay, so when I say rags to riches, I mean that he was his father's farmhand essentially. He hated farming, and I can't remember where he was. Somewhere he went to somewhere in Detroit with his dad, and he saw a combustion engine and was completely and totally enraptured by it. Now, he was already very inquisitive, and he was already, he would take shit apart and put it back together already. He had that spark in him. So when he saw a combustion engine, he basically was like, I'm going to do something with that. And did. Just he did. And then it was his transmission technology, that what we now know, in every car is a transmission. It was his technology that basically allowed him to create the Model T. And then there weren't that many sales. Like, people just couldn't afford it. And then what he did is he created the assembly line. Now, there were many steps that I'm cutting out. There was a lot that happened between then, but just to give you an idea. And once the Model T came out, we realize now, looking back in history, that what he did was so good for America that it's hard sometimes to look at all the things I'm about to talk about and say, oh, he was just this awful person. But he was an awful person. Now, again, this is a man that created the assembly line. And when he did that, they were producing 10,000 on all of his different plants. They were producing 10,000 Model Ts a day. This is a car that sold, I think it was over like 15 million fucking cars of Model Ts. And what's crazy about that is, I mean, obviously that made him like disgustingly rich, but he when he hired people, he didn't hire like skilled laborers. He went out and he hired people that basically could hold a wrench or something, and he said, okay, you're going to stand here and you're going to tighten every time this thing moves. You're going to tighten this one thing. That's all you're going to do. Just tighten this one thing over and over and over again. This is where we get the modern day assembly line. Well, not the modern day anymore. Now robots do it, but at one point in time, that was the modern day assembly line. Obviously, they cleaned it up. They made it more and more, clear, and you then slowly they moved people off the line and they turned it into robots, and now we have what we have today. But he created an entire middle class with this. He paid his employees better than everybody else did, even though that they were essentially, just repetitive menial labor. He paid them twice as much as everybody else, and so that gave them the ability to go out and just buy houses and live lives. He created a middle class. That is, I mean, you can chart it, you can look at it, it's definable. That's what Henry Ford did. So what happened in 1920, man, it's a tough pill to swallow. But he was, and always through his entire life, was a conspiracy theorist. He was. He's somebody who today, if he were, on TikTok, if he were alive today, he would be one of the guys that sits here, he'd be like QAnon, those kind of people. That's what he would be if he were alive today. He would spend a lot of time like digging into all of the people to blame for all of the problems. And back then, the people that he landed on, and I mean, maybe this gets the fucking video flagged when I say this, but it was Jewish people. That's what he landed on. He hated Jewish people. He hated Jewish people so much that in an interview in, I think it was in 1934 or 1935, that the mustachioed man in Germany did with a Detroit newspaper, he said that Henry Ford was an inspiration to him. That's how much Henry Ford hated Jewish people. There is a line that goes from Henry Ford to a certain German leader to the Holocaust. Like it's a definable line. And we know that this is true. He had his own newspaper that reached over 1 million people. They used to take his newspaper that he had these anti-Semitic like stories in, and he would put it out. The over 91 issues, like over the course of that many months, were put into like Ford dealerships. They would, when you would go sit in the waiting room at a Ford dealership, there would be this anti-Semitic paper that you could pick up and read, and it would tell you all about how all of the problems, everything that has gone wrong in America was because of Jewish people. Like that's what it said, and that's what it was about. And it was these things that made people like the mustachioed man again, Himmler, and all of these other people literally are on record saying, no, that dude is awesome. We love Henry Ford. He's saying all the things that we want to say, but he's saying it in a country that's full of people, and look at all the people that he's recruiting, and look at how great it is. Like they really did fucking love him. And so yeah, I mean, you have to kind of come to terms with the fact that this guy represented everything about America. The rags to riches story, the American dream that we're all told, born on a farm, comes up, creates something, people love it, it's important. It for better and for worse, it basically creates the middle class and cities. There were when he before he created the Model T, there was, I think the number was like every like 2 and 8 or something like that was, and I don't know why they don't just say 1 and 4, but they say 2 and 8. Every 2 and 8 was in a city. And after the Model T, because of the way that it kind of brought people together and made companies and corporations work the way they did, it was 5 and 8. Like he literally created the America that we have built on. And then we find out that he was, I mean, I guess we don't find out, but it's a historical fact that he was a horrifying anti-Semite. And, just hated Jewish people, which is kind of funny when you see somebody that's Jewish driving a Ford today. It's just a funny thing when you think about it. Now, as far as the quote of the day, I wanted to not focus on that. I wanted to find something that was good, actual information, because he did say good things. He was inspirational. That's one of the reasons why people followed him. It's just that I can't get past the evil and the hatred and the darkness that comes with that. I can't get past it. I don't know. Every time I think about him, I think of just this like decrepit evil man. I don't know why. But for the quote of the day, this is true. I believe this. And it's so sad that somebody like him said something this good and this profound and this important, but he did. So, Henry Ford, even though it's not actually attributed to anything he ever wrote, it is only something that has become his through word of mouth. It is attributed to him by word of mouth. So it must be something he said in a speech that was never recorded, but this is attributed to him. He said, anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. Let me read that again. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. Now think about that. Think about somebody saying that, and then also being okay to stay in that dark, disgusting, ignorant place that he was. It does ring of hypocrisy a little bit, doesn't it? But at the same time, it is very true. Like, we know that his belief in Jews destroying everything is not true, but we also know that this other thing is true. So you go with the thing that's true, and you say, okay, this is fucking disgusting. This is probably who he was. But this is the inspirational thing that he said. And he said a lot of other things that were inspirational and decent, but I can't think of him as a good man, knowing what I know. And now you know it. So wish him a happy birthday if you will, but everybody else, take care of yourself, take care of others, and I'll talk to you soon.